Corona TV viewers. I'm Johnny Damon.
You're my bobblehead Joel today, just nod up and down if you agree. Welcome to the show, Mitch. Joel, how are you?
Happy birthday to you.
And just look at those washboard abs.
I know, right? Oh yeah, this is the fittest I've ever been in my life, you know.
Happy birthday from Johnny Damon.
First of all, let's just do the elbow bump. Well, welcome everybody to a very special episode of Corona TV. Why is it special, you ask? Well, because it's an OG edition. It's an OG edition, which is why I showed the OG intro with Chapman, with Joel, with Monty, and today you're going to fall for falls on the show. But it's also a special day, of course, because it is national. It is not, national. It is Inauguration Day. Today, Joe Biden became the 46th president of the United States, and Kamala Harris became not just the vice president of the United States. You know this. You know all of this. I know you know this. But that glass ceiling. Can you just feel all those pieces of glass falling all over you? The shattering of the glass ceiling on so many levels. First, South Asian woman, it's just incredible. All of these, in this day and age of everything being unprecedented, today was unprecedented for all the right reasons. So happy Inauguration Day to you too, Mr. Tom Morris. We're going to talk a lot about it. We're going to talk about it during the after show. It's just going to be awesome. And so let's just get straight into it. Today, obviously, this isn't 12 noon. I know it's 12 noon somewhere, but it's not 12 noon here. It is 4:30. It is 4:30, and it is CoronaCocktails with the one and the only Jason Falls. He has his Kentucky bourbon, of course. He's in Kentucky. And I have my single malt Scotch to honor my Scottish heritage, even though I'm not Scottish at all. But it's just going to be, what could go wrong today? Not only am I drinking on an empty stomach, but also I just did a ride on my Peloton. So the endorphins are going, the exercise is going, the empty stomach is going. What could go wrong? And then tomorrow we do it again at 4:30 with Adam Ferrier. So it's going to be great. But mostly Jason Falls is going to be great. And, I've been criticized in the past when I have my OG editions that sometimes we do too much reminiscing and it gets a little esoteric. But today we're not going to reminisce enough, or at least we're not going to reminisce about the things we should be reminiscing about, but we are going to do one reminisce. And I think it's going to be, I don't know if you even know what we're going to reminisce about, but it's going to be interesting. Well, let's do some birthdays. Let's make that a little bit bigger for you. Donovan Andrews, previous guest. If you've been a guest on the show, you always get an extra shout out. Sam Morris, Graham Woodall, who is a creative director, the big kahuna at DMBMB, which is no longer, the agency is no longer, but Graham Woodall is still. So happy birthday to you, George H. Simpson, PR extraordinaire guru. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, happy birthday to you, Eric Ramon Majdi. Have a great day. But today, speaking of having a great day, the soliloquy is called A New Day. And I think you might know what it's about. I wrote today's soliloquy. I'm literally, as I'm writing it, President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris were pulling up to the US Capitol. So I thought I would begin with an original poem that I wrote today. Have a good life, followed by YMCA. Air Force One departs to the tune of I Did It My Way. That was some weird shit, we heard W say. But today it's Biden and Harris and a new day. Look, I'm no Keats or Yeats or Yeast, but I will say that my haiku, or my attempt at a haiku, is a whole better than an insurrection or a coup. But kidding aside, it's a new day in America. It's a new day in the world. You can feel it. Regardless of your political leanings, as we say in Yiddish, what was, was. Today we look forward. We have no choice. In fact, we don't just look forward, we must move forward. Negative sentiment and emotions are toxic. They break us down. They tear us apart. They divide us. Anger, resentment, regret. There's no need for any of these anymore. Hope, positivity, optimism. Now that we can all get behind. Each and every one of us has this in our power. It is our ultimate empowerment. It is our ultimate superpower. Most importantly, it is our ultimate choice. Today, I bid my unhealthy CNN diet farewell and replace it with a combination of reading, watching mindless blather like The Bachelor, and probably Clubhouse. Today is no longer December 51st, 2020. It is January 20th, 2021. It is a new day, a new chapter, a new opportunity to take a different path, and not so much as rewrite history, but be an active part of the writing of it. Today is a day where we get to check our New Year's resolutions and course correct, double down, or even add to it. Why not? Today is a day where we get to pick a lane. Are we non or anti? Are we passive or active? Are we spectators or participants? Today is a day where we realize the phrase, our best days are ahead of us, is not an entitlement, but a call to action, a challenge, a worthy challenge, a difficult challenge when faced with a crisis bucketed with a civil war, Great Depression, World War, and a second global pandemic. Tomorrow, we begin the uphill climb, but we do it as one. We do it together. We do it united as we possibly can be, but emboldened and assured that every day thereafter, this big tent without border walls accepts anyone and everyone. But that's tomorrow. Today, let us bask in the glory, the potential, and the renewal of another opportunity and chance, a second chance to be inspirational. So raise a glass and enjoy the moment. Today is a new day. Well, cheers to you. And now it is time to bring on a man where we can talk about new days as well. It's Mr. Jason Falls. Now, you know, you can tell a humble man generally has a very small bio. And he has a small bio. He has a small bio and a big beard. Jason Falls is a digital strategist, author, speaker, podcaster, and award-winning beard curator, and I still stuffed it up. He also invented handsome. I think I was just intimidated by his handsomeness. So let's bring him on the show. Mr. Jason Falls, you invented handsome. I knew it.
I did. I don't get credit for it a lot, but I did invent handsome.
I mean, I just look at you and all I can see is handsome. But I got to tell you, this look, I was looking at old Google images of you. This is your look, man, forever.
Yeah, I came downstairs about 3 or 4 years ago. I had my beard a little closer cropped back then. I decided I don't want the beard anymore. I'm going to go to a goatee. And I took 2 steps down toward the living room, and both of my children erupted and were like, "No, go put it back on." So I had to grow it back, and I like it. It's me.
You can never, I told you, you can never ever take it off again. All right, so Mr. Jason Falls, we have a lot to discuss. You are guest number 191 in this glorious adventure, but it's certainly one that I don't think I'm going to forget because, as I said, there is so much to talk about. And before we reminisce and before we talk about some fun facts about you, there's just so much to talk about. Let's just see what people are saying online. David said, nice. Bob said, I'll have what he's having. I get the reference. Manif said he thought that he missed the show at noon. No, you never missed it. My mom is here at, I don't know, almost midnight in South Africa, glued to the screen in terms of what's been going on here. And Tom says, after 4 years of stress hormones cascading through our bodies, it's a good time to recommit to hope, positivity, and optimism right here. Chip Griffin is here. David says, dare we compare to South Africa at the end of apartheid? You can dare to do anything you want, David. Manif says, cheers to a new day. And Seth says, it's a brand new day. The sun is shining. It's a brand new day for the first time in such a long time. I knew I'll be okay. And that is a brand new day from Josh Radin. So not as eloquent as my haiku, right, Jason?
Right.
But, you know.
I'm glad you didn't have me on camera as you were reading, because I was wiping tears from my eyes as you did your narration there.
No, exactly. You're like, he can rhyme. He can rhyme, and that's about it, pretty much. It says, congratulations, Jason. You've now become a number. Not just a number, but an important number.
I'm 191, apparently.
And Tom adds, the impressive beard needs an acoustic guitar as an accompaniment.
I've got a bass guitar back there. It's not acoustic, but and I don't know how to play it very well, but there's at least a prop back there you can look at.
Well, I'll say Room Raider called, and they said they're not prepared to give you your verdict until you've the guitar there. So I put this up because I thought it was kind of interesting. You know, in this day and age of, we've seen how social media has evolved or devolved or whatever the case may be. These were just a few little interesting things, Jason, that I thought I would put up. And most of these people. In fact, all of them, including Biden. Augie Ray, a nice little snarky comment, right? Wasn't it nice to see our 46th and 47th presidents sworn in today? And Jeremiah pointed me out to the fact, he said a reset account under new management. America, I like that, right? America is under new leadership. But interesting how the account was reset. And I think there's probably something I don't know what he's on right now, but there's probably something very interesting about this idea of a social media reset. I was on Clubhouse the other night, and I said, I think I've probably already messed up in terms of the people I'm following, the people that are following me. I'm following people that are following me. I should almost do a reset and start again. And so even the POTUS account being reset, I feel like there's a real message for people out there that says it's not too late to go back and redo it or do it over again differently, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times since I started my accounts on everything, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform, I can't tell you how many times I've gone through and said, okay, let's at least start over with who I'm following and who I prioritize in my stream, because I think one thing that's lost on a lot of people, and might be one of the causes of kind of the consternation politically in America right now and around the world, is people don't realize they have total control over their stream. You don't have to see things from the other side if you don't want to. Now, I don't know that I would advise you to completely block out the other part of the world, because that then becomes a problem. But we control exactly what we see in our feeds. And it's a really good idea to have a reset, every few months, to go in and say, you know what, I don't need to see this person's workout update. So let's mute them for 30 days. And if it still annoys you after that, then let's just unfollow them. You don't have to unfriend them. You can just unfollow them, at least on Facebook. But yeah, I think every now and then we have to kind of stop and reassess, because social media platforms are built to be addictive. They are trying to suck you in and keep you there so that they can feed you advertisements. So what we need to do is take better control of that and stop every now and then and say, I want to use this for certain things, but not others, and I don't want it to control me. So a reset every so often is a really good idea.
Control them, otherwise, as opposed to them controlling you. And I do think this is for me, actually, wishing everyone happy birthday has been a great way to, not on LinkedIn, because that number is too large. It's like 20,000 connections. But on Facebook, approaching that max, I do have the ability to unfriend, and really I'm just unfriending a bot or or a business account as opposed to a person. So there's definitely a message in there. Chip says it's never too late to start over with anything, not just social networks. It really is true. So there is a message. Now, Jason, before we get into, and already we're into it, I have to say, one of the things I really love about the agency that you work at is how people are profiled in their bios. And this is yours.
Yep.
I just think it's fantastic. It's visual in this day and age of Instagram and Pinterest. You want to call out a couple of things that are, you must hit the alcohol so that we haven't officially had our drink together yet.
That's true. So I've got Eagle Rare bourbon, which is represented there and represented here on the show today. I'm finishing off a bottle of that here at the house, and then here's the Eagle Rare. Oh, there it is. That's beautiful. And then I've also got Buffalo Trace bourbon on that profile image from Cornet, and then obviously Louisville City plays a big part in my life. I'm a season ticket holder for our local USL soccer team here in Louisville. And so that's the banner that's back there on my mantelpiece. And that's well represented in that as well. I've got pictures of my kids there. And then Christopher Moore is one of my favorite authors. I just love his sense of humor and quirky weirdness. So when the idea there for Cornet is, bring a bunch of items to the table that we can take a picture of that is kind of a snapshot of what you're passionate about. And so I'm passionate about bourbon. I love it. I went to West Virginia University, the football helmet up in the upper corner. I love Lou City. I love the Pittsburgh Pirates. I love my kids, and I love Christopher Moore. So that was, my definition of what sort of wrapped up what I was passionate about at the time. And it is a pretty clever, cool idea. We've got some folks, obviously, we're an agency, so we've got some creative people in the building, and there's a couple folks whose passions were displayed in very creative ways. It's a fun little time to navigate through there and see some of them.
Well, by the way, I just this week started teaching a social media course at West Virginia University through the Reed College of Media. So fellow Mountaineer, right?
All right. Go Mountaineers. How about that?
That's amazing. So I didn't actually see the WV up there, but that's awesome to find out as well. I've really enjoyed my experience with WVU. But this idea of like really getting to know the real person, we talk about in this business, like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We certainly understand the bluster of social media, the windbags, there's a lot of hot air being spewed over the social media airwaves. But do we really know the real person behind them, and even in life? And that's why I love that collage. Normally I go straight into the fun facts about someone. And when I reached out to you and I said, "Hey, Jason, what are the fun facts about you?" And you said something that made me very nervous. You said, "Yikes, I don't keep a lot of secrets." And generally, when somebody tells you that, you really need to worry what secrets they're keeping. But thankfully, you did volunteer too. So here was one of them. This is my. It's the wrong kind of ripcord, I know, but I just couldn't resist. So you have a very famous, I guess, relative that essentially invented the ripcord. Well, not just the ripcord, but a very specific type of ripcord.
That is true. My great-grandfather was an engineer in the U.S. Army, and he always worked on top secret stuff. And so my grandmother would, always ask him what he was working on. He was never allowed to tell that. And so one thing that he did tell my grandmother and my, great uncles and aunts after he retired was that he was on the team that invented the ripcord that catches planes on aircraft carriers. So any aircraft carrier where in Top Gun and whatnot, where you see the jet come down, there's a steel wire that the jet has a hook on the back of it that catches it so it doesn't fall off the end of the runway into the ocean. So my great-grandfather was on the team of engineers that invented that. He was an engineer, and I have his antique drafting and engineering tools as a sort of a family heirloom as well here at my house.
Well, now, if you thought that was interesting, well, then you're going to find the next one even more interesting. Now, here's the setup. I once gave Ted Kennedy booze. I was 9. We were actually able to capture that moment. Believe it or not, someone was there to take a photo. And here it is. It's a crazy, crazy story. Little 9-year-old Jason Falls with a full beard, pray tell the story.
So I'm from Eastern Kentucky, far Eastern Kentucky, and one of the misnomers about Eastern Kentucky is that it's overridden with poverty. There's poverty there, yes, but there's no real more poverty there than there is anywhere else in the country. But when certain, bills and legislation came before Congress throughout the years, and poverty was one of the topics, a group of senators and congressmen and whatnot would come and tour Eastern Kentucky for photo ops. And of course, while they were there, they would ask questions of people and all that kind of stuff. But they kind of came to see what the real reality of Appalachia was. And of course, their people only took them to the poorest parts. They didn't take them where the non-poverty people were. But nonetheless, so my mother at the time was the editor of the local newspaper in Pikeville, Kentucky. And so she had all of the press briefings and whatnot that Senator Kennedy was coming to the area to tour health departments and gather information for, congressional business. And I was, at the time, I was 9 years old, but I was a big buff, a history buff. And I did a lot of research and sort of got fascinated with the Kennedy assassination, the John Kennedy assassination. And so she told me, hey, John Kennedy's brother, Ted Kennedy, is coming to the area. We're going to go see him. And I was like, oh, wow, I get to meet Ted Kennedy. That's really cool. So because my mother is a newspaper editor and she knew there would be gaggles of reporters and there would be lots of people gathered around him at his various stops on this little tour, she decided, she told me, we're going to have to do something to get his attention. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a gift box of Appalachian, Eastern Kentucky arts and crafts items and whatnot. And then when he stops to talk to the media, you're going to plow your way through the gaggle of reporters and present him with this box. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do anything. This is going to be awesome. So little 9-year-old Jason has this box of stuff that my mother and stepfather have collected to give to Ted Kennedy. I plow my way through the gaggle of reporters and get right up next to him. And he stops, and in front of all these reporters, like, oh, what's your name? And so I talked to him, and I was on camera, and we presented him with this box of gifts, and he took a couple of things out and showed people what the gifts were. And it was a cool little media moment. What I didn't know at the time, but what my mom and stepdad coordinated, I don't know that they had direct responsibility for this either, but the box contained a little coal statue plaque from the Chamber of Commerce. It had a couple of pillows that were handcraft knitted covers by a local artisan. It had a bunch of just little odds and ends from Eastern Kentucky. I think there's a quilt in it, things like that. But it also, tucked back behind one of the pillows, had a mason jar full of pure Kentucky moonshine. So we knew that Ted Kennedy was a drinker, and we made sure that he had something good for the plane ride home.
And there you go. And the rest is history,
I suppose. I don't know if he ever got it. I'm sure his staff probably did something with it, but if he did, or at least somebody probably told him, I'm sure he got a good chuckle out of it. So I gave Ted Kennedy moonshine when I was 9.
But in your defense, it was dry January, so he never drank it. So everyone's okay. Just lawyers, just back down.
Exactly.
All right. So there is much to talk about, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was way back when. Chip says Ted Kennedy was a drinker. Shocking. No, not in January. Not in January. Jason, you wrote. Well, we're here today to talk about many things. One of them is your new book called Winfluence, which is why I called you the Dale Carnegie of social media, right? How to win friends and influence people, Winfluence.
Yeah, that was a new one on me. I've never been called that before, but okay.
There you go. But you've got the win and the influence, and you are the Winfluencer. You are the Winfluencer.
I like it.
But your first book was called, and I said first book, maybe. Was it your first book? Maybe.
It was my first book, yes.
So your first book was called, a pretty classic book. It was called No Bullshit Social Media, right? And how do I know about the book? Because I was in the book, but maybe not for the reasons I thought I would be in the book. So I wanted to ask you to do a reading for me, if you don't mind. Okay. Would you mind just reading the segment where you reference me in your book?
Sure. A reading from the book of No Bullshit Social Media. It's really kind of sad that social media marketing advice evolved the way it did. Social media enthusiasts in the mid-2000s interpreted and preached the principles of the clue train with a vengeance. Their themes included talk with your customers, not at them, engage your audience, and the ever popular and really annoying join the conversation. This last talking point even became the title of social media pioneer and agency entrepreneur Joseph Jaffe's book. Join the Conversation did an excellent job of pounding the purest drum and pointing businesses down the road of changing their traditional ways to connect or reconnect with a dissatisfied customer. But for all the talk of collaboration and community, the book only offered real world case studies of companies that made marketing missteps, but never really talked about whether or not conversational marketing actually works. This is my favorite part. Unfortunately, Jaffe's Gaffy was the loudest song being sung by social media evangelists in the late 2000s. They would talk about the touchy-feely part, we call it the kumbaya effect, but they conveniently overlooked the other half of the equation, the bottom line. To be fair, this was when social media marketing was just getting started, and the evangelist needed to spend a lot of time teaching business people how to just listen to the new connected customer. He or she didn't have time to focus on harder topics, such as how to measure conversations or the ROI of social media. There you go.
So now I find out, as we do back in the day. When was the book written?
2011.
So 2011, the Google alerts go off. Someone sends you an email or pings you and says, "Hey, did you see what Fool said about you?" I don't know that we had met or certainly had a meaningful conversation like we're having now. And I remember being so pissed off about this reference. And we never spoke, or I never spoke to you.
True.
I never spoke to you. I remember even seeing you at the Inbound. And like how I don't even know if I greeted you. If I did, it was very cold. Well, I'm here today to apologize to you. I'm apologizing to you for being such an arsehole, for being so petty, for not realizing at the end of the day, as the old PR saying goes, rather they talk about you than not at all. And when I go back and I read it, I see that there were like lots of little Easter eggs and things, in fairness and to be fair and etc. So, one of the gifts for me of 2020 was the ability to reconcile. It was second chances. And I just want to say to you that I'm sorry that I let so much time go by without even just picking up the phone or and just saying to you, "Hey, what you said about me really upset me or offended me, or why did you say what you said?" Or just to say, "Hey, listen, thanks for including me in your book, because I'm a big boy," at least I thought I was, "and I can take it, and I should have been able to take it." So I wanted to say that to you, and I wanted to say to you live on the air, streaming, which is to say that I'm sorry I let so much time go by and waste so much time, but I'm grateful for the second chance to reconnect with you after all these years.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I would also offer back an apology for not being a bigger man then and calling and talking to you about it either ahead of time or at least, giving you a heads up. Hey, I'm going to point this out, and here's why I'm going to point it out. Because the intent was not a personal jab at Joe Jaffe. It was simply just to say, everybody's talking about joining the conversation and getting involved in social media marketing, and that's great, but we can't stop there. Once you join the conversation, you got to figure out how to connect it to business. And while certainly you were really good at doing that in your practice, my only criticism of the book was a light criticism, really, was just, okay, joining the conversation is great to have in the book, but let's take it to the next step. And that's what Eric Deckers and I, my co-author of that book, were trying to do, was saying, okay, now that everybody's joined the conversation, and like my book wouldn't have been possible without your book. The conversation about social media ROI and using it strategically and whatnot and getting into the nitty gritty of it never would have happened had it not been for first the Clue Train and then David Meerman Scott's book and your book. And so there were several things that had to happen for us to even have the opportunity to say that. And my intent was never to take a jab at you. It was, however, I will say that, when I present ideas like that come across like I might be taking a jab, there's a little bit of strategy to that too, because you stir up a little controversy and people pay attention to it. But I will apologize to you for not talking to you about it before it was published. That would have been a smarter course of action for me. But also, too, for not doing the same thing and connecting with you earlier in the evolution after that, so that we could sort of air that out, make sure that we were on the same page and move on. Because, the times that we have spent together, the conversations we have had over the years have been incredibly valuable. And I've always appreciated and enjoyed your friendship. And I'm sorry that we didn't bridge this gap sooner, but I'm glad again that we have.
Well, listen, Manif says virtual handshake is due. So are you ready for the virtual handshake?
I got to do this way, or no? Yeah. I got to do this way.
Or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you do that. There we go. Okay, that's close.
But I got to say, I was thinking, what would Jason, what would Jason Falls today tell Jason Falls back then? And I think you've probably said several of the things. But what would you tell yourself then? Now that you know what you know?
I think I would tell myself then to call Joe Jaffe, tell him that you've written this, it's going to be published, and tell him why. I don't know that I would, have necessarily written something different or said something different. I might have massaged it a little bit better, but I think I would have called you and said, hey, I'm going to make this point in my book, and it's going to seem like a shot across the bow, but here's the intent of it. And I would hope that you would be okay with that. That's probably what I would do, because I think if I had manned up a little bit more back then and actually had a conversation with you about it before the book came out, none of this wouldn't have pissed you off, and we would have been fine.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the Joseph Jaffe today would go back and tell the Joseph Jaffe then to have picked up the phone and said, thank you to you. because as you said that, the book did pave the way. You referenced the book. The book was your benchmark and your gold standard. And I couldn't see it then because I was blinded by whether it was, narcissism or just self-importance or self-inflated sense of importance. But I think there's a lesson for people, and I wanted to do this because we didn't need to do this for each other. We're good. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, we live in a world where perception is reality, where social media is manipulated, where social media is often distorted, where things are not always as they seem. And quite frankly, had you called me up and said, I'm going to do this, I would have, and even showed it to me, I would have said, bring it on, dude. Mm-hmm. In fact, not only, but I'm going to manufacture some false, outrage, and we're going to get into a whole battle. And we could have even built it up into something, and then the grand reveal would have been, surprise, we're good.
We could have had a professional wrestling, version of social media marketers going at it, at each other's throats all the time. Would have sold a lot more books.
So there you go. So Seth says, brothers don't shake hands, brothers got a hug. How the hell do we even, hold on.
Come on in here. There we go.
So wait, we hugged, we shook hands, and now we move on. Chip, you get the last word. Criticize me all you want. Just spell my name right. I hope I spelled his name right. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to, there's a lot to talk about. And one of the things that you wanted to talk about was, for me, it's time for a refill, by the way. For me, one of my favorite subjects right now, because I've dedicated the last almost year of my life to this focus that everything is a show. And I call it the streaming era. We're living in the streaming era. My soliloquy last week, Monday, was called The Greatest Zoom on Earth. Mm-hmm. So, Jason, you wanted to talk about brand building and live streaming on the web and in the form of a streaming show. And, I'm totally all in on this one. So tell me what's going on and why you are personally so bullish on this.
So there's a couple of reasons, and it started before COVID actually, but COVID actually, to borrow a Jay Baer term, poured gasoline on the fire. And so I had started using live streaming for, my show called Digging Deeper, which I do for Cornet every Tuesday morning, which you've been on. And I had been using it in the version of that show before we named it Digging Deeper, and had been talking to clients about it. Hey, and here's why. Without COVID as part of the equation, it's like, look, if you are live streaming, number one, you are putting a live product in social media streams which are prioritized by the algorithms. They're going to notify your fans and followers and other people when you go live. They're going to put that live stream video at the top of everyone's feed. It's an easier way to get eyeballs on what you're doing. It also presents a very human connection, because if you're doing a live stream, more often than not, you're going to have somebody in front of the camera. You're going to have a face and a voice to your brand. You're going to have some human interaction and some personality. You're going to have people jumping into the comments and saying things that you can leverage on that stream the way you do here on the show. So we were at Cornet, we were talking to our clients about these opportunities because the technology was enabling more direct communications with your customers and breaking through the algorithms that you were fighting against with other more static type content. When COVID hit, now all of a sudden we had businesses and brands that for a while couldn't even have people walk in the door. They were having a harder time communicating with people, and the harder time communicating with people was overlapping with the fact that so many people were at home wanting more content to consume. So people were spending more time on social media, which gave us, even more statistics to go back to the clients and say, look, the audience is now intentionally aggregating here. They are there because they don't have anywhere else to go. They can't go to the movies. They can't go to concerts. They can't really go out to eat dinner in most cases. They're sitting at home on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube and all these other channels. Let's develop content for that audience because the technology allows us to do so. And so we fortunately had a couple of clients that were one or two that were listening, and one that was kind of developing their own kind of idea along the same lines and at the same time. And so when we had the conversation, it was like, heck yeah, let's figure it out. Let's turn on the cameras and see what happens. And I think we've done 3 or 4 different live stream products now for clients at Cornet over the course of the last 9 months. 2 of them have been significant successes. And so we're having a lot of fun doing it. And I will continue to evangelize and sing the praises of live video because it's really more engaging and breaks through that clutter.
So my belief is that every meeting, every conference call, every status report, every offsite, every workshop should be a show. There is an internal value proposition, employee engagement, training and development, the ability to connection during a time when people can't meet in person, when people have, quite frankly, Zoom fatigue. But I guess my question for you is it a fad? Is it just now and just during these times when we can't meet in person, when we do revert to in-person and travel, etc., will the need for live streaming and live video fall away?
I don't think so, and for 2 primary reasons. Number one, consumers have gotten used to it. They're going to demand it, right? So if you're not doing live and your competitors are, then consumers are going to gravitate to that content because, again, it's more revealing. It's more kind of peeling back the curtain. There's a lot more humanity in it because the announcer isn't clean and polished and edited, right? You can have flub ups, you can have sirens going by in the background. It's real, and that's what people want, that transparency, that honesty, the reality of the situation. And so consumers have gotten used to it because so many more people are live streaming and so many brands are trying to come to the table with it. So consumers are going to demand it, and if you're not doing it, if you shut it down after this is all over, then you're going to shut down, the interest of your consumers. That's probably the first thing. And the second thing is again, algorithmically, if you're trying to break through the clutter on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, live is better than recorded. It's another ding on that algorithm that says, if I'm looking at 2 pieces of content, all things being equal, one's live and one's not, the live goes on top. And that means you break through the clutter. And that's hard to do these days. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
I'm pouring a second glass to say cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
Because obviously I've put a lot of stock in trade in that. I want to recap what you said. What you said was live above pre-recorded or delayed or on demand or whatever the case may be. And then the second thing you said is that consumers will demand it, that this is what we're used to now. This is what we want. This is our new normal now is one where we are, I mean, I did a Zoom the other day, just a meeting, and the person wasn't on camera, and I was like, "What the hell? Where do I look?
Yeah.
Like what's going on right now?" And then I said, "Well, screw you. If I can't see you, then you can't see me." Right. So to me, this environment we're in right now, coupled with the live, right? What is the live? The live is Jeff Cottrell is here, and he said, "Hello, folks. Sorry I'm late. What a great day it is today." And then he adds, "I'm ashamed of my beard now that I see Jason's. I'm headed straight for a shave after this." Or don't shave, by the way.
No. Cultivate that thing. Put a little beard oil in there. Comb it. Rub some olive oil on it. Maybe if you've got a bald spot or two, get that thing out there, man. Let it go.
I mean, this is 6 months of growth now. But anyway, but enough about the fact that I don't have any. Ted Wright is here. He said, "Jeff Cottrell, a great day indeed." Previous guest as well. In fact, so was Jeff.
Yep. Ted's actually going to be on my Winfluence podcast here in a couple of weeks.
He's amazing, and his company's amazing too. Tom Morris adds, he says, "You two are great examples of how to live stream right. Great lighting, well, not so much with me. Great audio, yes. And of course, incredible hair and makeup. No, yes. So, I mean, I think it's all true to say about you, Mr. Falls."
Well, I will say something to Tom's point. I don't wear makeup, but I do turn the heat off in my house so that I don't sweat and get all beaded up. So I don't put on, base or powder, but I make it so that I don't glisten.
I hope that I never ever wear makeup on a show, but as I say, please God, let me be so successful in this that people insist that I wear makeup. I'll wear it only under protest.
Well, if you keep drinking that scotch, you're going to get a little rosier than you are now. You're going to need something.
I'm going to have to adjust that ring light. Jason, let's go back to this conversation for a second and get your point of view on what is the B2C versus the B2, not even B2B. What is the B2C version of it? The public, live, consumer or customer facing version of it versus one that is just private and used for employees, partners, channel, bottlers,
Sure.
Distributors, dealers, etc.
So one of the clients that we're working with at Cornet and have for a long time, and that really grabbed hold of this live stream thing, really without our prompting, is the Buffalo Trace Distillery. So Buffalo Trace Distillery is the proud distiller of brands like Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace Bourbon, Weller, E.H. Taylor, and some others. They do a fantastic job. They're one of the, if not the most visited bourbon distillery in Kentucky every year. They've got great tours and whatnot, but obviously they're a travel tourism destination. So we're not talking about the bourbon brands per se, but the actual distillery where it's all made. So they have tours. It's a travel destination. And obviously when the pandemic hit, they had to shut down for quite some time. I think they were down until June or July when, the restrictions were freed up a little bit more. And so, in the midst of the, April, May time, we were trying to help them solve the problem of, well, how do we engage consumers in the travel tourism space when they can't actually do the travel tourism part? And so the good news is number one, Buffalo Trace Distillery already had a virtual tour on their website. So we promoted that, and that was very successful. But then Chris Comstock, who's the sort of senior marketing manager there for the bourbon brand, said, why don't we do this live stream? Why don't we, have kind of a virtual tour, but an actual tour, like walk people around the distillery and have Harlan Wheatley, the master distiller, sort of welcome people to the distillery. So we, collaborated with the distillery team and the brand teams and pulled together Whiskey Wednesdays. That started in May. And by the end of the year, we had done all but 1 or 2 weeks. There were a few weeks that we missed there for various things. But by the end of 2020, over 4.4 million people had watched Whiskey Wednesday videos on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and multiple channels, because Buffalo Trace Bourbon has, global channels and things like that on Facebook. So not just one stream, but in total across the brand portfolios where the live streams appeared by the end of the year. So in 7 months, there were over 4.4 million people had watched those streams. And we hit like 100,000 on one episode after 3 or 4 weeks. It was obvious that we were filling a need in the marketplace, that the distillery team and the brand teams were filling a need in the marketplace by saying, hey, you can't travel here, but we know you love the brands. We know you love the experience. Let us welcome you in via live streaming. And it just took off and has become kind of a marketing and promotions channel, but really an entertainment channel for a travel tourism destination that wasn't able to welcome visitors until late summer, and even now they're welcoming them back in very limited numbers because of social distancing and guidelines and whatnot. So it's been a tremendous success in connecting the Buffalo Trace Distillery brand with its fans and the people who want to come there.
Well, let me just tell you, this show brought to you by Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Call me. You can pay me in kind, no cash, just in kind. In all seriousness, what I would say, and by the way, I mean, you're making sales today because Jeff says he's switching to Buffalo Trace so that he can be on brand. He said, I'll meet you at the distillery, Whiskey Wednesdays for all. I think every Wednesday now should be a Whiskey Wednesday on Corona TV.
Absolutely. 2:00 Wednesday afternoons. We're cranking them out. There's one next week.
I want to say in all seriousness, please tell your clients that they are welcome to come and tell their story on Corona TV. I would love to have them on as a guest. For me, it's fantastic. It's validation that what you and I have started doing is real, is working, is growing, is meaningful, is substantial, and is being well received. So kudos to the distillery. And by the way, there are too many comments to put on right now about people that are on their way to either the distillery, to meet you on Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
It is.
Or otherwise to our after show. So we're going to be hanging out on the after show. Jason, this is great. And I appreciate you sharing a case study and the power of streaming, the power of live, the power of engagement. I think that, and the fact that doing this now for a client, you do not see this falling away when things return to normal.
No, and the kind of a telltale sort of sign for this, and this happened very early on. One of the members of the distillery team, I think it was after the very first one, they turned and said, well, how many people watched? And we, ran the numbers and came back with 30,000 or how many ever the first episode was. And the response back from one member of the distillery team was, I have to travel to like 12 cities to see that many people in a given year if I'm doing, market tours and whatnot. So just the fact that you can turn on the camera, live stream, and have that many people.
That's amazing.
It's a game changer for them in a lot of ways.
I think it's a game changer across the board. But here's something else that's a game changer. Your new book called that. How's that for a segue?
That's nice. I like that.
Winfluence, reframing influencer marketing to ignite your brand. I'm excited to have you on the show. I'm excited because ultimately the book is out soon. Why don't you set up the book in terms of why you wrote it and what essentially the central premise, thesis, hypothesis is of the book?
So very similar to, what I noticed in the marketplace when we were talking about no bullshit social media. I'm, building influence marketing programs for clients on a fairly regular basis at Cornet. And one of the things that I've been noticing about the conversation about influencer marketing in the marketplace and the media coverage of influencers and whatnot, one of the things I noticed is that I felt like the mainstream media, when they reported about influencers, still looked at them with oh, this is cute. It's people with, duck lips and peace signs taking pictures of their food, and it's airbrushed and it's fake and it's going away, and you don't need to really even think about this much. And so for the business owners and brands out there that don't stay plugged into the marketing industry conversation, they're going to turn away from influencers because the mainstream media has kind of backed us into a corner into making people think that influencers are superficial, that they don't really, equate to business. And I think they've been portrayed, when you use the term influencer or influencer marketing, they've been kind of portrayed as Instagrammers or YouTubers, and that's the extent of it. And anybody who knows anything about influencer marketing knows that those are two very small pieces of a very, very large, industry and opportunity for your brands. So the premise for the book is to make the statement that, look, we have backed ourselves into a corner, calling it influencer marketing and allowing people to think that it's only beauty and fashion influencers on Instagram and YouTube, and that it's superficial and not effective. We need to reframe it. We need to rethink how we think about it. And so I thought about it. Wait a minute. We're talking about, we always call it influencer marketing. We focus on the influencer. What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to influence. We're trying to influence an audience. We're trying to persuade them to take an action. So if we look at influencer marketing, change it just a little bit and say, let's call it influence marketing, because that opens up the door for it to be online on social media, on Instagram, but it also opens it up to be a lobbyist that is influencing legislators to vote differently for our business or our industry. It also opens the door for me reaching out in a very hyper local way to the president of the local PTA to communicate to, parents in the area. So if we're trying to influence, then it broadens what we're able to do and how we're able to think of it. So Winfluence is my little catchy label to put on reframing it so that it's influence marketing, not influencer marketing, and focusing on the action that you're trying to achieve, the goal you're trying to get to, versus the channel you're trying to use. I'm
going to cite something that I've said now maybe about 100 times since, and I'm 98.7% certain that it was Andy Crestodina that said this. About the availability heuristic. The fact is, the things that are the most visible and easiest to measure are almost always the least proportionate or connected to the win, to those real tangible business outcomes. And of course, what I'm referring to is, friends, fans, followers, the quant, the easy stuff, to your point. By the way, Jeff Cottrell says everyone has influence and has the ability to influence others. We need to stop reading Ad Age and ignore their buzzwords. And Garfield adds, I subscribe to people. Now, normally I wouldn't show this, but I thought this was perfectly, talk about a comment that came in at the right place. Want to become famous, buy followers. I kid you not, this just came in through Twitch. See what I mean?
That's fantastic. I love it.
Big follow. This episode brought to you by bigfollows.com as well. Thank you for that comment, whomever you are. And I'm so glad that I'm pushing this out on Twitch. Jason, there's something that to me, I think speaks to why you wrote this book and why people should buy this book. Funnily enough, it actually came, and I'm hat tipping a conversation on Clubhouse yesterday as well. It is, I made the point that there is a world of difference between popularity and influence, right? Popularity is quant and influence is qual. But then someone turned around and said, is it influence or is it impact? And I thought that was a great paradigm and a framework, which I'm sure you would, it's exactly what you're talking about, which is influencer or influence is meaningless if it doesn't have some kind of a, goes back to even the no bullshit social media. Right. It's got to be tied to a business objective, to a goal, to a measurable, meaningful, tangible outcome that is, substantial to the business.
Yeah, and I would say that if you're looking at those three words there, popularity equals influencer in my mind. If you're an influencer, yay, you're popular. You've got a lot of people who follow you. If, however, you're focused on influence marketing, then you're talking about that middle one, the influence, and achieving influence, whether you are a person who has influence or whether you're a brand trying to leverage those people with influence. I think the impact is actually the measure that proves that you have that influence, right? The impact is the outcome that you're able to produce for a brand. If you're a content creator, if you're a quote unquote influencer, impact is the proof that you are what you say you are, and not just some superficial fly by night who's, looks pretty on Instagram or YouTube.
I mean, we've got the whole framework. We just developed it, right? Which is this is brilliant, right? Popularity equals influencer the old way, but through Winfluence and through your book and through your new vision and rethink on this, ultimately influence equals impact. And I think that framework is, if this was able to add to your framework, then this is my way of redeeming. This is my second chance. But it makes so much sense to me, and certainly the people commenting seems to reinforce that. Here's one group I will say in the time we have left that is struggling a little bit with it. This is an article that you didn't write it, but you shared it with me, which is called "Boomers in PR Don't Trust Influencers or Influencer Culture." So what's going on with, I guess, more OGs in the PR space that they're not getting with influencer marketing that maybe they will get, hopefully, through your book and through influence marketing?
Right. So Eric Hansen at ACH Communications wrote this blog post a couple of Fridays ago. And last Monday, I actually called him over the weekend. As soon as I read it, I was like, dude, let's get on the line and let's do a podcast episode about this, because I want to explore this more deeply for you, because I think it's a great point. And he cited a couple of different statistics that sort of illustrate that older public relations professionals, he called them, boomers, just as a general label, but it was basically public relations professionals over the age of 40 or 45 or so. He points to a couple of sets of statistics that show that they spend the majority of their time and say that they prioritize their time with traditional media relations. So reaching out to newspapers and television and magazines and radio stations. And I think it was 76% of their time was prioritized that way, and 24% was prioritized with online influencers, that category of new media member. Conversely, though, when you look at the statistics of what consumers trust and where they go for news and where they go for product information and where they do consumer research on when they're buying products, it's like overwhelming, like 60 some odd percent say that they have taken a recommendation from an online influencer in the last year and purchased a product because of that. Now, people, like Ted Wright will tell you there's some flaw in the thinking there, but when you look at all of the statistics and you look at the propensity for consumers to trust influencers as industry experts or as experts for product recommendations and whatnot, the fact that public relations professionals of any age are spending 3/4 of their time with what many people think are dying mechanisms and 24% of their time with, where consumers are actually paying attention, you've got a problem. And so Eric pointed those statistics out, and we discussed that on an episode of the podcast last week. And I definitely think there's some meat to that analysis. I definitely think there are some older generations who, just like there were, 15 years ago when you and I were trying to kick the tires on social media marketing, I think there's an older generation of people out there that are looking at influencers and saying, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I still read my morning newspaper. And so that's where I'm comfortable and that's where I'm going to play. And I think they're probably doing it to their detriment.
Well, there is certainly a convergence, which is when you take PR and social media and influencer marketing and maybe podcasting and certainly streaming, maybe we've just deconstructed or unpacked or repacked the killer app. I am excited to read your book when it comes out. I wish you, I have to ask you the question. Now suddenly I'm wondering, am I in your book? And I'll be pissed off if I'm not in your book. Please tell me you debunked something of mine in the book.
Are you in there? I don't know that you are. I'm sorry. You might be, though. I don't remember. I'm getting ready to do the audiobook, so I'll reread it again here shortly.
You see, this is the point, right? Rather they talk about you than not at all. We just proved the point. And in fact, the quote that I found for you today, Jason, is is this one. If someone is gracious enough to give me a second chance, I won't need a third. Any idea who said that?
No, Winston Churchill. I don't know.
I'm not sure that Pete Rose is going to get his third chance. But, mea culpa, everybody loves a comeback and retribution. Some people don't get a third chance, but I'm so glad that we got our second chance today to come together. In fact, quite frankly, I love being on your show. I loved you being on my show. And I hope it isn't the end of our conversations and our collaborations.
Certainly not. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
So we're going to move over. We got to go to that after show because people, those ice cubes are not waiting for us. You can subscribe to the companion podcast, Winfluence, the influence marketing, not influencer, influence marketing podcast. I've provided that link. I've provided the link to the article. I've provided the link to the book in the comments below. So go ahead and support Jason. And this is an OG that has stood the test of time, as evidenced by his beard. He's here to tell the tale, and he knows what he's talking about. I want to tell you as well that if you want to find out about what his great company, Cornet, is doing with live, with streaming, and with other things in the digital and other realms, just go to teamcornet.com. And if you want to connect with this wonderful man, you can do that on the Insta, Jason Falls. You can do it on the Twitter, Jason Falls. You can do it on the LinkedIn, Jason Falls. This man owns his brand and his name. Mm-hmm. Jason, before you go, you have to answer the Corona question, which is who would play you in a movie? And as I've been saying the whole week, people want to know. Ultimately, TMZ just called me. They need to know. They want to know. Have a sip and tell me who would play you in a movie.
I have been told by several people, including my girlfriend, that there is an uncanny resemblance in many ways, personality and otherwise, between me and Jack Black. So I'm going to go with Jack Black on that one.
But that's Jack without the beard? I'm like trying to...
No, I think with the beard, because he's had a beard. He's sported a beard lately, and when he gets the beard, he's got a little gray on him. So, I mean, we could pass for brothers, probably.
No way. Chip Griffin said Jack Black, and he said, I win. I don't win, but I took a stab at it, and here was my guess. Jeff Bridges.
Okay. I'll take Jeff Bridges. He's awesome.
You should take him because he's quite possibly one of my favorite actors. Jason, this has been fun. It has been illuminating. We spanned the globe. We spanned the entire continuum. We spanned time, history, space. We ripped a hole in the time-space continuum. We got a chance to get another chance. And, there's nothing more to say except come and hang out with us. Raise a glass. Let's talk about a new day, new beginnings, haikus, influence, or whatever the hell you want to talk about. I'm done. Chuck Norris, take it over. Where are you, Chuck? Oh, there he is.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
Let's go over to the Zoom after show.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at CoronaTV.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.